Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Big League Breakdowns. Today, we're going to discuss five interesting teams as we head into September. My name is Tyler. Joining me, as always, Will, John, and Bobby behind the
Not really behind
camera.
anything these
Yeah,
days.
you're
I
not
just kind
behind
of sit
anything.
there.
You're
I just
like
kind of sit on
hiding
the side.
somewhat off screen.
I'm
You're
u- I'm
I
hedging your
u-
bet.
am.
I'm used to our casting days where I would say, behind the camera, but you're straight in
Yeah.
front of it in uh
Yeah.
in the Citizens Bank there.
You
So
know what's funny?
Hey,
You know what's funny though? I've probably contributed about as much as I did last season in terms of talking, but yeah, I feel like my big head still deserves to be here for some reason. So it's a design choice at the end of the day.
uh
Yeah, we thought his ego couldn't get any bigger. We were wrong.
we
we
were.
tried to keep him off screen for a while, but then he wanted to join in.
Yeah.
He wanted to
It
feel
was bad down there.
included.
You
This
know what I don't
episode,
miss though? I didn't have to have lights on me the whole time. I don't
yeah,
miss
sure.
that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, well,
interesting.
you're
There's a
blinding
dark
the
abyss,
audience
and
with
then
your
the
pale
lights
skin
turn
anyway.
on. The
Yeah.
lights just
I
turn
mean,
on.
literally,
Oh,
it's
Bobby
like
wants
this
to
is
say
usually what
something.
they see every time, and then all of a sudden it's like, "Hey guys, I have an opinion."
Yeah,
Yeah, so this episode, yeah, we found five teams that have had interesting seasons, second halves,
For a
a
lot of
whole,
different reasons.
yeah, for a lot of different reasons. And probably teams that we should have done quick videos on at some point and talked about. So now we can kind of wrap them all together here and talk about them. The first team being the Milwaukee Brewers, who have just gone and done it again. They've absolutely bamboozled everybody. Every year we think that they're going to fall off, and this year we thought for the first couple weeks of the season, yeah, this is it. This is the end of their reign, and now they're the best team in baseball. Um, the Brewers sitting atop the league at 83 and 50. They had the best record in baseball by 5 games. I always like to say, by the way, and I forget to do it until after I say the first stat. But we are recording on August 27th, so stats might slightly change. Before this gets
never.
posted, but yeah,
We might even be in September by the time you watch this.
we we might exactly.
That would be
Um,
pretty horrific out of us, not saying something.
but I mean, they're the best right now. They have been the best team after the All-Star break, 27 and 10 since then. And Will, all around, they're just a really good baseball team who just gets the job done. And to you, how are they pulling this off?
It's contributions from everyone is really the big thing. I mean, you're getting some players that are, well, I say some players, I'm mainly thinking Christian Yelich when I say this, who are turning back to the player that they used to be. Right now, he's batting 271 with 26 home runs and 90 RBIs. But I mean, the numbers since the All-Star break are what really stand out as being all around team effort offensively, because Bryce Terang is suddenly hitting for power, and this dude hit like 6 home runs all of last year, and he's had 9 since the All-Star break. William Contreras is turning back into the player he was before. I'm still going to give all the credit to Reese Hoskins because brotherly love, but I mean, this team has always been pitching heavy. We had no issues or no thoughts that the pitching would suffer, because that's always something that Murphy or counsel before him could make work. It was always what would they do with the absence of Willie Adames, and a lot of players, Sal Frelick, I have totally said that wrong, didn't I?
You got it.
I couldn't tell you.
Terang, Contreras, like Andrew Vaughn is the big, like, talk about a trade deadline like steal. A lot of people are just stepping up, and that's how they're able to make it work.
Yeah, so part of the I guess section here with the Brewers is I want to get into, we talked about, how do they always do it? How do they always do it? And I was talking about in terms of record, but the other thing they do is they turn, seemingly players that are at, they've hit a wall, they can't do anything, they're really struggling. They turn them around real quick and make them in the gem. So I'll get to that in a little bit, but I do still want to stick on just the theme of them overall and go to John with, how are you seeing it? Because as Will said, the pitching has always been consistent, and they have a lot of the same contributions. Their bullpen's been really good again, like it always seems to be. But looking at some offensive stats, I mean, they've been really, really good this year offensively.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, all around, these are team wins here. You got Bryce Terang with 9 home runs in 34 games. William Contreras, 9 home runs in 37 games. Christian Yelich batting 299 with 7 home runs. Andrew Vaughn, 299 with 9 home runs and a 901 OPS. Currently leading the team with 38 RBIs. These are team stats here. It's not just one guy carrying the load here, and that's where a lot of teams fall into the issue. Yankees, that they rely on one guy to do everything, and when he's not producing, then they struggle. The Brewers here, they do not do that. They are a team built on everybody doing their part.
And they have. And I should also say too, by the way, a lot of these stats that we have are either from the post All-Star break or post June 1st, because that's a lot of the stuff that we were looking at, like seeing really, because I think June 1st was like a good date, and I always like to go back to that as you go through the year, because in the first part of the year, the first 2 months, I think teams are still trying to figure stuff out. You got guys coming back from injuries and stuff like that, and then June 1st hits, and it's like, all right, this is when the real season, almost, if you will, starts, and things pick up. So, but yeah, I mean, overall, since June 1st, the Brewers are second in team batting average, OBP, and OPS. Only behind Toronto, another team we're going to talk about. They have the best team ERA. They're second in both bullpen ERA and starting pitching ERA. And it's funny, and maybe Yankees fans that are going to hate this, but they get rid of guys like Devin Williams a few years ago, Josh Hader, and they still continue to have really good bullpens, really good starting pitching. Freddie Peralta again is having a phenomenal year. And if not for a couple other pitchers, honestly, would probably be in Cy Young conversation. But I
Oh
mean,
darn, the Yankees are gonna be upset.
the Yankees fans are going to be
Oh
upset. But
darn.
even like another guy, dude, like Quinn Priester, right? Former Pirate, former, I believe, first round pick for the Pirates. He has just nothing has worked for him in his career, right? Prior to this year, he goes from the Pirates where he got beat up. He went to Boston in a trade. Nothing happened there. He goes to the Brewers, and all of a sudden he becomes an all-star level pitcher. Like, he's 11-2 since coming to the Brewers in 2025. He's got a 3.44 ERA in 128 innings, and this was after having ERA in 2023 of 7.74 and a 4.71 in 2024. So, well, like I guess I just want to get to the bottom of how they're doing this. Like, I guess really, and we're speculating on this. We don't have concrete evidence. I guess it's just their player development, their coaching, and all the guys we don't hear about. I know you're more fond of Murphy than you were of Council, but it seems like any iteration of the team, they just find a way.
I do think the coaching staff in general with this club is the main thing. Um, I mean, I know managers get usually the first look at it or whatever, they get all the praise on the face of it, but having experienced it with the Phillies getting good managers, and even the first year with Council going to the Cubs, there's a strategy that works for managers, but the reason it works is because everyone behind them is sound and does their job perfectly. And last year it showed that even with Council gone, Murphy, having been his bench coach, was able to easily take the same method and use it to the betterment of the team. I think it's just whatever they have pitching staff wise is perfect coaching with these players. I think that's probably both their biggest strength and weakness entering the postseason, because they're gonna definitely be the team that everyone watches because they tend to fall off. But this year just feels different.
Yeah, and we'll get to that in a second because that is going to be my next question. But again, like I just talked about Priester, even Vaughn, like Andrew Vaughn went from one of the worst teams in the league where he was struggling mightily. They pick him up and he's been one of their best players. Like
Quick
it's
thing for
insane.
Vaughn, I
Yeah.
will say is I have to wonder when you're on a team as bad as the White Sox long enough, you just there's that sense of freedom with the new environment and this
Yeah.
willingness to like come to work and give your best. Like
You
you
make it
can't
sound
tell
like
me
Shawshank Redemption. He just he crawled through 5 miles of human excrement, and
I
now
mean,
he's
he
free.
might
He's
as
on the
well know
boat.
it. It's like, hey, you got traded to Milwaukee, but you have to take this giant tunnel to get there. So, and he's just, yeah, there's a Shawshank moment, and he is basking in
I,
the glory
well,
of
Morgan
Milwaukee.
Freeman should narrate the Andrew Vaughn story.
here's the one thing though, like, so both of these guys we're talking about, Andrew Vaughn was a former third overall pick and pretty sure was a
Yeah.
first round pick. So like, it's they're getting guys that teams have given up on, and you know, if you're a baseball player that gets picked that high, you at one point in your life had that potential, and they're just really good at unlocking potential. Is really what it comes down to. And I think mostly that probably comes down to coaching. But they're a force to be reckoned with. But now let's get into the conversation that Brewers fans hate hearing, which is
Mhm.
John. I mean, they're so good right now. They've been so good in the regular season for years. But when playoff time comes, that's when, you know, all this matters, right? And what is your sentiment on this team heading into the postseason? I mean, do you feel better about them this year than you have in previous years?
No, the Brewers. You know what? We count them out every single year. The problem is that I have no evidence to the contrary, and that's the thing. They are the epitome of a regular season team and the epitome of a regular season franchise until I see them uh, win a wild card series. Let's just start there.
They're gonna get
How
a
about
bye.
Well, let's see them win a series. Uh, Honestly, if they do get the bye, and
They're gonna.
they can't keep up this pace, right? They can't.
Well, there already are some cracks supposedly in their armor right now. I mean, they're still doing really, really good in the last couple weeks. They where's my number? There it is. They're 8-16 in their last 14 games. But they've lost some games recently. The offense hasn't been there as much as it was. The pitching ERA over the last couple weeks is around 4. It's like 4.5 if you even go to like the past week. But I think the biggest thing for me, I mean, there's always going to be that debate with a new team has a bye and how they handle the bye, and also their opponent with how hot they might be. I feel like for the Brewers, the thing that could be the issue is the 7-game series, whether that's the NLCS or whether they make it to the World Series. Teams that have really strong bullpens recently, it feels like, and fall into that habit of going to the bullpen early during those long series, eventually it bites them in the butt when you're facing a team with a really good offense. It happened last year with the Guardians. And I think that's a fair team to compare with who the Brewers are. I do think the Brewers offense is better now than where the Guardians were in this situation last year, but the Guardians were a team where for a lot of the season they were really, really good. They were slipping off somewhat in the second half, and that's, I think, what carried into the postseason. But a Brewers team like this that has a really effective bullpen, that may get them through the first round, even if their offense hasn't woken up yet from a bye situation. But if they get paired with a team like the Dodgers, or if the Phillies are hot at the time, then maybe they do run the risk of overexposure in the bullpen and it hurts them in like games 4 or 5 and so on.
I think the
Well,
best thing for a team like this that has been consistent and has been able to put up these offensive numbers is to keep the momentum rolling. I think the best thing for them would be to get into the wild card series rather than the division series. If they get into the
All right,
division
listen here.
series,
You need
hold
to
on, let me
tank.
finish. Let me.
No, the Brewers need to tank now so they can get a wild card spot.
I genuinely think that they can win the division and still play in the wild card series and keep the momentum rolling. For a team like this, the rust versus rest reward is a bit too much for me toward the rust side. So I have more faith in them turning it around in the postseason in the wild card round than in the division round with having a week off.
I mean, at the end of the day, if they go into the playoffs and fail again, at this point, it's a mental thing because I think looking back at their teams, this team might be the most complete team that they've had. And if they fail again this year, then it's got to just be a mental thing because everything's clicking for them. I mean, the offense is clicking, the defense is clicking, pitching, bullpen. So, if they're to lose again in the first round, then I don't even know at that point. It's something internal, but again, this is the best that they've looked, and I think that they're going to be a strong contender. I just hope for their case that they don't fall into the same trap. Let's move over to the American League here and talk about a team that is really also exceeding everybody's expectations. I don't really remember where I had them, to be honest, in my predictions. I might have had them last in the division, but the
I think I
Toronto
had them
Blue
last.
Jays. My goodness. Talk about a team that we were wrong about in so many different ways. I think the one point I did make about them is I said if they're going to be good this year, it's going to be on the back of their pitching because their offense is going to struggle. I was very wrong about that. And with the teams in their division kind of faltering at the moment, they hold a 4-game lead in the East. They are the third best team after the All-Star break at 22 and 15. And since June 1st, again, a place where I'm going to keep going back to, second best record in baseball at 47 and 28. Will they found a way to turn it on again, really based off the back of their offense. There is holes on this team that we'll look at and kind of get into, but how do you feel about this team? Because I certainly didn't expect any of this, and you look at kind of how things are going for them, and it's still a little bit unbelievable.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think a big factor is Bo Bichette and George Springer going back to what they used to be players wise. Bichette, of course, had the really off 4 year injury ridden year last year. And it really put into question what we thought his season was going to be like this year, going especially on a free agent. Like final year of his contract, he was going to be a free agent. And George Springer's just been going downhill with injuries and ability for the longest time, or like say longest time, really since he's been, it feels like, in Toronto. But both of them are hitting really well. Vladimir Guerrero is doing well, but he's not doing like quite the elite stuff that you would hope for. His average is definitely back up there, close to 300, but it's the power that's he's only just barely over 20 home runs. I think the thing that surprises me the most is the pitching side of it, because even with where you were saying numbers wise, they are. It's just like they've
Stop
never
watching
been
the
great.
Phillies.
I'm not. The stats are here. This is stats, and those are stats, but they're different stats. I don't want to watch the Phillies. They're losing. The thing that's just weird, I feel like, with this team that has always been hard for me trying to understand why it's working as well as it is their pitching numbers. And it's the run differential is the big thing that I look at, because they're third in the American League East and like fifth in the American League in general in run differential, but they're third, fourth, somewhere around there in run scored. Their pitching just hasn't always been the greatest. And so they are making it work as many times as I always wanted to be. Like, they're on a hot streak, then they play 500 for a while, then they're on a hot streak, then they play 500 for a while. They seem to figure it out right now in a good comparison. I kind of look at them similar, I guess, to the Yankees of last year. And like, I guess the offense carrying it in the end, especially when it came to the postseason. When Judge sucked, but there weren't always the questions with their sound fundamentals or even some of the pitching spots, but obviously it got them to the World Series. So I think there is a possibility that happens with the Blue Jays, because there's no one that really stands out that much anymore in the American League. But I think for them, they just need the hope that the offense continues, and that the same players are continuing the rebound and can carry them deep into the postseason.
I mean, it's just an interesting thing, right? Because since June 1st, they lead MLB in basically every major offensive category, average OBP, slugging, and OPS. Yet they only have that 59 plus 59 run differential. And I was curious too, because MLB.com has like the expected win value or expected win loss based on their metrics, and they have them at 72 and 61 on just expected wins, so five less than they had. I think a lot of that has to do with the run differential, their pitching, and I think actually that comparison to the Yankees last year is a good one because it's not only that their offense is kind of carrying them right now, it's that their bullpen is blowing a lot of games. Or not blowing games. They're allowing teams to get back into games. They are blowing games sometimes. They're making it more interesting than it needs to be. So I think that's actually a pretty good comparison. But John, a team like this who is explosive offensively and doing it without the big names, right? Like the guys that are definitely going to be able to do it. Again, comparing it to the Yankees, like they have Vladdy, who's a great player, but he's no Aaron Judge. But you have an offense that's good, and then you have a bullpen that's as shaky as it is. Where do you kind of rank that with like the success that they're going to have when postseason time comes around?
I think what we've said for years is what I go back to, which is bullpen is so important in the postseason. And when your pitching is struggling, and what happens when your bats go cold? Because bats always are always streaky. I think that, Vladdy is consistent. His numbers are what they should be. He's playing on his new contract. I think he's as happy as a clam. You have Bo Bichette, who I think is playing out of his mind because I think he's playing for a new contract, whether that be in Toronto or in another city in the league. So there's that aspect of it as to why I think his numbers are so impactful. George Springer, it's inevitable that eventually, whether it be this season, next season, he will get hurt. So it's to me, I don't like their offense for the long term. I am actually down on their offense. I think that the comparison to the Yankees is a good one in the sense of it's not if, but when their offense cools off. And when their offense cools off with how much of the struggle bus uh, that their pitching has been on, has been riding on, I think overall they don't scare me. They don't excite me. I think they'll win the division, and that's as far as they'll go. I think they'll get bounced in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, it's just it's so interesting, and maybe it's just the division they're in that's kind of been lackluster right now compared to what not lackluster, but I don't know,
I mean,
like
there's three teams going to the playoffs
yeah,
from
no,
it.
no, but I'm saying like I guess when we expected the Yankees or the Red Sox or the Orioles for that matter being one of the teams that absolutely pulls away in the division, and right now it's kind of like it's just a lot of back and forth right now. But yeah, you know, right now, I mean, outside of Springer, Bichette, and Vladdy, the offense is not amazing. I mean, Kirk has done pretty like okay, and then Varsho, since coming back from injury, has done well. But it feels like I don't love that they're relying so heavily on three hitters with a bad bullpen. Like when you talk about postseason, um, interesting to see. So Santander apparently is back with the team after his long IL stint, so maybe he comes back and can make an impact for the playoffs. But yeah, just not great. Again, since June 1st, going back to that metric, bottom third in team ERA at 4.36. Their bullpen ERA is sixth worst. So it's not great, and their bullpen as a whole leads the majors in walks. So like it's another thing. They're just allowing a lot of base runners and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like I don't really fear them as much either. I do think just based on everything, although I really like the Red Sox. I think the Red Sox could make a play at the division. But I think, they continue this pace, they probably win it. I just don't fear them as much in the playoffs
Well,
as
think
I
about what
would
I
other
said about the
teams.
Brewers. That's a team that the whole team is contributing. What you
Mm.
just said about the Blue Jays is that you're relying on three guys to contribute. So when those three guys go into a slump, if one of them goes into a slump, now you're down a third of your offense essentially. You're in trouble.
Yeah.
So it the bullpen needs to improve going into the postseason, and the other guys in the lineup need to start contributing more. Otherwise, it's going to be an early exit for Canada's team.
I agree. Last thing I kind of wanted to say on the Blue Jays as a side tangent. Bobichet's, excuse me, been such an interesting player because, he obviously has his dad's footsteps that he's always been following, but he was such a highly touted prospect. And then he's had, last year especially had a really down year. This year, though, batting 306 with 16 homers and over 800 OPS. The fielding, not good at all. He really struggles in the field, but I mean, do you think he's the long-term solution for the Blue Jays at short?
I think they're going to try to keep him around. I mean, I think in the end, because of how well of a season he's having, he's going to test free agency for a bit. But I believe that the desire will be a reunion in the end, and it'll probably be the outcome unless the Blue Jays decide to put more money in other areas and get a better defensive option. But I
Yeah.
think this year kind of would show them that he really can be the catalyst that they need at the top of the order to help push the offense to the next level. It just hadn't been there last year or two.
Yeah, I mean, on the defensive side of things, I mean, maybe that's why they brought in a guy like Jimenez at
That's
second.
the modern baseball.
Yeah.
You don't need defense. You
Well,
need home runs.
I mean, they got Jimenez in, and I was like, well, maybe that's kind of to cover up like short with Bichette. But hey, whatever they've done, they found a way. I mean, John, do you have any other opinions on him as the shortstop of the future for them?
No, I think we'll hit the nail on the head there. I don't think there's going to be a reunion.
Don't think. Oh,
Nope.
you heard him wrong then, because he thinks it's going to be a reunion.
No, I think he hit the nail on the head in terms of he's proven that
Oh
he
yes.
can do it, but I disagree with him that I don't think there's going to be a reunion. I think
Hold on, let me
that
take the nail out and hit it again.
Already
lightly tap it. Lightly tap it.
I don't know, man. He's just an interesting player, and he's kind of had a
Like I
weird
said,
last two seasons.
I think he's playing out of his mind for a new contract.
Probably,
Whether
yeah.
that be in Toronto or another city.
At least he's done enough to earn more money than he would have gotten after his performance last year. I'll say that much.
His agent's going, "You're making my job easier. Keep going."
Let's go back over to the National League. Talk about our third team here, the San Diego Padres, who are hot on the heels of the Dodgers. You can say a couple things about that. Dodgers, of course, having somewhat of a down year considering the roster that they have. But looking at the Padres, I mean, they have been great value as well.
Can I go first?
Good, go for
The
it.
Dodgers have no reason to be anywhere but first place in that damn division. And if they don't win the division, it should be considered a absolute disappointment. Thank you.
They're still going to win the World Series, though, so who cares?
Yeah, I mean, hey, I like that. I like that the Padres are giving them a run for their money. This is a weird team, though, and we'll get to that in a second based on their stats.
They're
But
fun to watch, though.
they got a hell of a bullpen. I'll tell you that. You want to talk about a
hell
starter?
of a bullpen and no power, but they
Yeah.
score some runs.
They got a star bullpen. If there was ever like a best bullpen of this decade, they might be up there. But yeah, the Padres' second best record in the MLB since the All-Star break at 23-14, so their second half has been going pretty well. Just that one game back from the Dodgers and the NL West, and they got a 3.5 lead in the wild card, so they do have some buffer room there. But yeah, well, I'll let you get into it with this team. As you said, I mean, great bullpen, and their offense isn't performing as maybe you'd think with some of the power guys they have in the lineup.
Yeah, no, I mean, they've been bottom like 5 in baseball for like the entire season, it feels like, or at least bottom 10 in home runs. And Machado's having a great season. Tatis is fine. Jackson Merrill got hurt for a bit, but when he's come back. He hasn't quite put up as the power numbers he did last year, but his average is upper 280s, 90s, or 300s. So they're getting a lot of they're just getting a lot of clutch hits because they still are, since I believe it's the All-Star break, top 10 in baseball and runs scored. And we know Ramon Laureano has been an excellent acquisition by them. How dare he not come to Philly? But
Hey, you should have given us
they are
the offer
definitely
they did.
they are they're the perfect example of a team that is pitching can win you games and get you through the regular season, because that's what their bullpen has done. It's been phenomenal. And so the main thing for them is, I'm not saying they necessarily need to have the power return, but the reason they did not beat the Dodgers last year when they were up 2-1 was because their offense went cold in the last 2 games of that series. They just need to hope that they can keep this rhythm going that they have in the second half, especially because the division's right is theirs for the taking. Really, the Dodgers have been a 500 or just barely above 500 team since June 1st, since that's the date we love to talk about, right, Tyler?
That's the benchmark. Yeah, I look, this is going to be another question that I'm going to ask, and it's really based off of the other teams that we've already talked about, and maybe why it makes these teams interesting. It's like, can this formula win you games in the playoffs against, the best of the best opposition? And I think a lot of it plays, right? Like if you're the Padres and you have that bullpen again is the best in the league, and it's really not even close right now in terms of just everybody has been so good for them, but they're not hitting for power recently, and it's something that as playoffs come around, is that going to be sustainable is kind of the big question. And John, I'll leave that off to you. Like, do you think that this formula they have right now is going to be good enough in the playoffs with the struggles that they've also had in the past?
I don't think this is the formula they're going to have in the playoffs. I think their offense is going to heat up. The power numbers will come up more, especially for Machado. Guys like Ryan O'Hearn, guys like Tatis, they've proven, not necessarily last year, but the year before that. Right, it was the year before that where they lost to the Phillies, right?
The
22.
22,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, they've proven that in the postseason that they have that experience, they can bring it, they can win series. So I think all in all, we're just going into September. They have about a month to heat up and get those number and get not necessarily the numbers, but get the bats going. There we go.
Yeah.
To get the bats going and back up this bullpen essentially. That is definitely one of, if not the best in baseball. I mean, it's just when you add Mason Miller to a team like this, it's deadly. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, it's been really great for them, but they're playing a little bit of small ball right now, right? Like they're fourth in team average. This is again from the All-Star break on fourth in team average, fourth in OBP, and they've been bottom five in home runs. And then since June 1st, they have the second fewest home runs in the league, only ahead of the Pirates. So it's been a lot of clutch hitting. I will say the other stat I really found interesting with this team is they're 27 and 19 in one-run games this season, which is second best overall. I want to say the Mariners are first, but this is a team that it makes sense. When they have a lead, their bullpen can shut it down. They're winning the close games. They're getting the clutch hits. And John, I mean, I tend to agree with you. You look at the star power on that team, and I think that there is definitely capability of heating up. Guys are going to get hot. Machado is going to continue to roll. I think Laureano, as Will said, has been an excellent bat for them. And O'Hearn could be another great bat for them in the postseason as well. So, yeah, I think, and people forget, man, like they maybe should have beat the Dodgers in the postseason last year and didn't, and they were only a few steps away as well. So, they are a team that I definitely think, if we're talking about pretender and contender, I think that I value them as a contender way more than I do the Blue Jays, or I can't even say the Brewers, but the Brewers, but the Blue Jays for sure.
I think because of the lack of offense the Padres have of the three teams we've talked about so far, they're the team I feel the least positive about getting far. Um, that just seems to be the factor in the long haul in the postseason. Not to say that with how good the bullpen is and if the offense gets hot at the right time, it can take them to the World Series. But there's going to be a point where they're just going to face a team with good pitching and it's going to stop that offense cold.
Yeah,
Because we're on
possible.
August 27th and not September 27th, I think that there's plenty of time for that offense to heat up again. And I think that overall, this team, if you can win it in both ways and score runs both ways through either small ball or with deep bombs, it doesn't matter. A run's a run regardless. So I think that will be a feather in their cap.
I think the history of the players on their roster and kind of what you can expect from these players would lead you to believe, yeah, there is that capability of them heating up. We'll just have to see. But again, I mean, to Will's point as well, they have also looked the worst offensively. So maybe it stays that way. We don't know. But I like that they're giving the Dodgers a fight for the division and making things interesting out west. Let's move to the Red Sox, our fourth team on the list, who gotta say, I think I went way off the board for World Series picks and I picked the Dodgers and Red Sox. And for a while, I was like, wow, what a terrible selection. But I feel really good about the Red Sox, man. I do. They're 4 games back of the AL East lead behind the Blue Jays. They are in a wild card spot right now, but they've been really good since trading Rafael Devers. Kind of weird. Maybe, I don't know. I was gonna say maybe there's actually a reason for that. Maybe it's just a
He's a
coincidence.
toxic player in the end.
When you get the cancer out of the clubhouse improves.
I mean, I don't know, man. Like I don't. Part of me wants to not believe that, but the next two teams we're talking about here, there's a lot of evidence to suggest otherwise. But yeah, the Red Sox have been on a roll, and well, again, it's another situation where they're kind of proving us wrong for reasons within the team. Like, yes, they're doing good. We thought that was going to be the case, but I think yours biggest problem with them going into this season was the bullpen. And then they found 37-year-old, 38-year-old Aroldis Chapman, who's the best pitcher in the league again, the best closer in the league, and here we are. I mean, he's been unbelievable. So
yeah,
go
I
ahead.
have no words. I mean,
nothing.
You said it, and I can't tell you why their pitching is doing good in the bullpen. I thought it looked terrible going into the season. I just looking at the names, I don't feel like it should be doing that good. And then I'm looking at the numbers, and I'm like, how?
Yeah.
How? Like I don't get it. I don't get it. We knew that the offense was going to be there. The fact that Trevor Story has somehow been healthy is kind of a miracle. Bregman, when he's been healthy, has been great. So it's just, and the young guys, I think, is an important thing. Is they've given some of the young guys a shot, and they've done a good job, and how they've performed. So it's like enough is working that they're as high as they are. I feel like the reason I had them so low is because in my prediction, even though I don't think I had them in the postseason, I think they were like just out type of thing, but it was because of that bullpen. But yeah, all the question marks right now that I really had are turning into positives. Garrett Crochet still holding strong as the season's gone on. The bullpen's been great. I mean, we know the postseason's a different animal, but it's just like I got to give a lot of kudos to really for trading away Devers, if anything, because that has really been like, hey, you want to change things up, get rid of Devers, and everyone thinks you're out of it, and suddenly you're back to being a potential favorite for the representative in the American League and the World Series.
Thing is, they are young too, so this might be for the foreseeable future. The Red Sox might be dangerous here.
And the funny thing is too that it's not like they're doing it with guys that they got in the Devers deal. Like it's not those guys really. It's not like they got a whole package back and all those guys are making contributions. It's just they believed in their lineup. And look, I think you can kind of fabricate things and be like, Devers was the problem. I think it's more of a coincidence that this is happening, but they are 36-24 since that trade. Since June 1st, they're 45-28, which is third best. Like, again, I felt the first 2 months of the season, I was like, "Ooh, man,
But
that Red Sox pick wasn't good," but they've turned it around.
think about it this way: ever since they brought in Bregman to essentially play third and take Devers' spot, what was his whole attitude? Was I'm not gonna play first. Third base is my spot. I'm gonna throw away my glove. I'm just gonna be a hitter. Blah blah blah. Now all of a sudden they start winning as soon as that mindset leaves the clubhouse. I think there is a little bit to say
It
about
could,
that.
it could.
Well, yeah, I would say whether this is the connection or not per se, I do believe that with the Devers trade, there was definitely a looseness that kind of came out of that clubhouse. Whether or not Devers added to any tension overall that was felt, but it was fairly clear, it seemed like, from an ownership and front office standpoint, that the team's direction was going to be, we're going to let the young guys play, and whatever happens, happens, because we do believe that these guys can lead us to the postseason, whether if it's not this year, it's in the next year or two. And with that, everyone just kind of taking that step back and just going out and playing baseball, especially because this trade happened like right around the halfway point. There was still a lot of baseball ahead, and they've just taken full advantage of the opportunity to just go out there and play. And that's really, I think, the most important thing that a lot of teams kind of get lost in their heads at times when things get kind of tough down the stretch.
Well,
Yeah,
that's the thing, is like it's not like this was a deadline, move. This was essentially the first third of the season.
Yeah, it was at the halfway point roughly. We were halfway into June.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say the actual halfway point,
The
not
literal halfway
not
point
the one that
of
the MLB
81 games
recognizes.
in.
Right.
Yeah, the literal 81 games.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess for me, it's hard to believe. Like, yes, if you get a guy like out, if it really was like a toxic thing, you get that out of the locker room. Yes, but the fact that they got rid of their biggest bat and one of the best in the AL, or has been at least for the past couple seasons, and then he leaves, and then it's just crazy to me. Like, it's hard for me to believe. But yeah, again, a lot of the things that we thought with them that was going to carry them. I mean, we talked about the offense when they had Devers and Bregman and all this, but it's been that pitching that's really been good. I think Skubal is eventually going to win the AL Cy Young again. But Garrett Crochet, man, he's had a really, really good year and is definitely the second best pitcher in the AL this season. He's been doing it for them. Roman Anthony, since he's been called up, has been awesome for them, slashing 287, 398, and 452. So, Christian Campbell really didn't work out, but Anthony's come up. He's been great for them. Trevor Story, as Will mentioned earlier, has been like a second coming of him from earlier in his career. So they got things
Grandpa
rolling, man.
Chapman.
And Grandpa Chapman, and
Old man Chapman with that rubber arm.
yeah, like
Jeez.
again, just going through his stats.
If this is one last hurrah for him, boy, is it a way to go out.
Again, I'm going back to June 1st, but this stat was insane to me. Since June 1st, he's got a .32 ERA in 28 appearances, and he's 17 for 18 in save appearances. Like, he's been what they need back there. So good stuff from him. Of course, guy that goes from the Pirates and excels elsewhere, dude. It always comes back to the Pirates. Let's go.
We were talking about with Shawshank?
Yeah. Let's go to the other side of this Devers trade, and our last team that we kind of have found interesting this season is the Giants, because they have fallen off a cliff. We talked about the Giants after the Devers trade. They were multiple games over 500. We said, man, this team is good. Their pitching is good. They're only going to get better with this bat that they got in. Turns out they've been like the worst team in the league since the acquisition. So sometimes things in baseball just don't work out. 64-68 is where they sit right now. Actually, still only 7 games back of a wild card spot. So
they're out of it.
So they're probably out of it, but yeah, it's 12-23 since the All-Star break, since the trade went through. They're tied with the Rockies and Nationals. Not company you want to be in for the worst record in baseball. And then they had the fifth worst run differential over that time as well. And really what's happened, Will, is that they got a great bat in Rafael Devers and their offense got worse. How does that happen?
Toxic. Anyway, well, so the thing that always seemed interesting to me with the Giants' success early in the season was they were getting extra base hits like crazy. Like it seemed like they weren't necessarily having high averages, but they were getting a ton of extra base hits. And I mean, if you hit a lot of doubles, then you're going to get a lot of runs. So I feel like they just reached a point where finally the numbers average wise maybe didn't change as much as we feel like they have been. I mean, I feel like Adames has been kind of that 220s guy the entire season. Matt Chapman is, even though he's a very good defensive player, he's always been a very low batting average type of guy. The Devers trade is, of course, the interesting one just because he's always been really good offensively. But of course, Oracle Park is a very pitcher friendly stadium. So there maybe is some stuff there with how Devers is much more trying to drive the ball for home runs, and he can't do that as well. So he's getting more outs. But just finally, the extra base hits stopped falling because they were falling at such an unreal pace. And now they're finally falling off a cliff because of it. I mean, since I believe the All-Star break that I have, their pitching ERA is 4.18. Like it's not ideal, but it's not terrible. Like if your offense was performing at least average, you would suspect that in the second, at least right now, overall records wise, you would be at least 5 or 6 games over. But I think the offense just finally came down to earth, and Devers just has not adjusted to being in a pitcher friendly park all the time, and that's why everything's kind of skewed.
Well, yeah, I mean, you said if they could just get average offense, they probably are above 500 by a few games. But, since that Devers trade, they're they got a 230 team average, which is second worst. They got a 304 team on base percentage, which is third worst. They got a 377 team slugging percentage, which is fifth worst during that time, and a 681 team OPS, which is third worst during that time. Like, they are scraping the bottom of the barrel with, again, those teams that are not even close to the playoffs right now. And Devers, I mean, since he's come over, he's batting 226 with a 335 on base and a 407 slug, 10 homers in that time. And you look at what he did with Boston prior to coming over, he was slashing 272, 401, and 504 with 15 home runs. So he has really slowed down. Does the ballpark have a lot to do with it? Probably. But he just hasn't adjusted to the environment there, and he's really struggled. So, John, I mean, it's there is star power in this lineup, right? Like there is some potential, but they haven't even touched it, since this Devers trade. I mean, we think they're definitely out of the playoffs, but do you think that, this is something going forward, maybe even into next year, that, hey, this will eventually pan out? Or, I mean, what's going on with this offense?
What was it we went back to at the beginning of the season? History, history, history. They, the tendency of all these players is to perform much better than what they are. So that's what I think will eventually happen, just not this year. I think overall they're relying on their star power and relying on thought that Devers was going to come in and be the second coming of Barry Bonds, and that just hasn't happened. I think overall this is a disappointing year where they tried to make this big splash trade and it backfired on them. I don't know if it's that Devers is continuing his shenanigans in the Giants clubhouse. I don't know if it's the same situation as Boston, where he's essentially a cancer to the team. It could be all those things, and we've seen this before. Just because you have a star powered team does not mean you're going to have World Series success. And with the way the Giants are going, it doesn't seem like this season is going to be the case at all for that.
Just crazy, man. Like you get a premium bat and you got worse and worse by a lot. Like it just something's not adding up to me. And we said this with the Giants at the start of the season. They are in one of the tougher divisions in baseball just because you have the Dodgers and Padres at the top, and the Diamondbacks, although they're having another bad year, you felt like they were kind of on the cusp too. Um, and you just can't play the way that you are. You got to find it offensively. The pitching has been good enough to get you to the playoffs if you had average batting, but you're not there right now. And again, Devers being being there and not performing really hurts. So we'll see if they end up turning it around. Again, I think this year's probably a lost cause, but next year and going forward, because they have Adames and Devers locked up, and I think Chapman's there still for a while too. So um,
With the
they
star power on this team, if they finish below the Diamondbacks, they should be embarrassed.
yeah, I agree, and you know they. They play in a tough division, but it's no excuse. Like you gotta be better than what you've been recently. But with that being said, that is all for us here. Again, 5 teams that we found interesting as we head into September. 4 good teams that are going to be contenders and pushing for that postseason. The Giants not being one of those teams, but that is okay. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned some information about how things have been going in the summer this season. But that is all for us here at Big League Breakdowns. You can follow us on Twitter at BL_breakdowns, Big League Breakdowns everywhere else. Make sure to like the video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel for more, and we will see you next time.
Wear your seatbelt.